Ianella for prayer and pledge today.
We ready for the prayer?
Yes, our
Yes.
assembly's been called to order, and I recognize you, Councilor Ianella, for prayer and pledge.
Thank you very much. We come to you this hour asking for your blessing and help as we are gathered together. We pray for guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would clearly show us how to conduct our work with a spirit of joy and enthusiasm. Give us the desire to find ways to excel in our work. Help us to work together and encourage each other to excellence. We ask that we would challenge each other to reach higher and farther, to be the best we can be. We ask this in the name of the Lord. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
Flag
to the flag
of America,
States of America,
for which it stands, under God, indivisible, faith and justice.
justice.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Ianella. I recognize Councilor Duff for a motion to record advice and consent for the financial warrant.
So move, Governor.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 I recognize Councilor Jubenville for a motion to record advice and consent for the pending list of notaries, public, and justices of the peace.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 And I recognize Councilor DePaul for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of Andrew Abdella to the position of Associate Justice of the District Court.
So moved.
Second in
Second.
discussion.
There's a motion and a second. Councilor
Thank you.
Devaney.
Thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant Count. I find no joy in voting no today, but I know it is the right thing to do to represent the citizens of Massachusetts. I know it's not always popular to do the right thing. Today, the council will be voting on a nominee to be a judge who has very little legal background. He has had only 2 jobs since law school, working in a city hall as an assistant solicitor with 12 other assistant solicitors in that same office and working for a sheriff. In 21 years as a counselor, I have never seen an application like this. What is most disturbing to me is a serious sin of omission. The nominee signs the certification and waiver on the application that it is not complete as it is directed. It reads, "I hereby swear or affirm under penalties of perjury that the information provided within my application is true and complete to the best of my knowledge and belief. I want to make this very clear. I am not in any way questioning penalty of perjury part. I am concerned that it is signed as being complete. The word complete, it's not. At the nominees hearing, I asked Andrew Abdella, did he ever think of applying for a clerk magistrate position? And he replied, he did 3 years ago for the Dudley District Court. I asked why he did not put that in his application, which is required. This is where he did not complete the questionnaire that he was sworn to. In the questionnaire, there is a box to put the court applied to, a box to record the year, recommended by the JNC, yes or no, and a box that reads nominated by governor, yes or no. Check if the JNC approved or not, box to check if the governor approved. But it also reads, or if other entity other than judge. Please note, his application was not complete. He should have recorded it. At Attorney Abdella's hearing, he replied to my question when I asked him, did you ever think about applying for clerk magistrate? And he said, now this man is going for a judgeship. I didn't think a clerk magistrate position was judicial. I followed up and called him later, and I asked if the Judicial Nominating Commission gave him an interview. He said yes, and a few days later, he received a letter that he was not chosen. I met with this nominee for over 4 hours and 10 minutes, and he never, ever mentioned he applied for a clerk magistrate position. Why? On the Governor's Council questionnaire, question 4 reads, please advise the council with any additional information, favorable or unfavorable, which you feel should be considered in connection with your nomination. Guess what? He didn't answer. A judge requires excellent writing skills. The applicant's descriptions of his cases and results were incomplete. This nominee wrote explanations of only 3 cases. The rest of the cases documented were in 2 sentences without explanation, and he stated repeatedly it was a complex case. I have read hundreds of applications, but when I met with this nominee, I had to ask him to explain the cases in his application. You know, I am asked often what I look for in a judge. Should my answer be someone who works in a city hall? Someone who could be an assistant solicitor with 12 other assistants in his office? And for a sheriff, someone who has a nice personality, someone who is a good father, good husband, with no noticeable life experience to bring to the bench. It could be a city hall treasurer. This council, under the Baker administration, has not voted to reject one nominee. I am elected to represent the citizens of Massachusetts. I'm not running for Mrs. Congeniality. There are highly competent lawyers who have had high-profile cases who have been rejected by the JNC. I meet lawyers who will not apply when they see a nominee chosen with such little legal experience. Lawyers I meet have been rejected for Judicial Nominating Commission interview, some rejected for the position. Lawyers for 20, 25 years, hundreds and hundreds of trials and cases, 3 and 4 times a week in court, criminal cases, civil cases. What is most egregious is that this nominee has been assigned to the Worcester District Court, most noted for the most criminal cases, yet he has not even been involved in a 209A. I asked at the hearing what he has done to prepare and learn about criminal law, to learn about criminal cases recently. He hasn't taken a course or read up on criminal law. He said he talked to judges. For whatever reason, the JNC has added a second question about hobbies. I don't know, but number 57 is another question about it. In his application, the question asked to list hobbies. He responded, being a father. I believe a father is not a hobby. It is a responsibility. He answered the 2 questions about hobbies with the same question, but the second question he added his wife to his hobbies. Just an observation that I'd like to add. This was very interesting about this position, clerk magistrate at the Dudley District Court. He had more moves than on a checkerboard. The nominee, Mr. Abdella, applied for clerk magistrate. Police Officer McCarthy also applied for the same clerk magistrate at the Dudley Court, and he was assigned. And his questionnaire said Dudley Court. Then few days later, they switched him to the Westboro Court. And the clerk magistrate was eventually filled by Jen Casey, who is still a member of the Governor's Council. I believe Andrew Abdella is a good person. I liked him. It's hard to vote against a person you like, but he's not prepared to be a judge. I have an obligation that I have sworn to represent the citizens of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I will be voting no. Respectfully submitted, Marilyn Petito Devaney.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We may begin the roll call.
May I speak, please?
Oh, of course.
Thank you.
We second, Councilor.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate my colleagues' questions last week at this hearing. I think they all did a wonderful job. A lot of topics were covered. And I appreciated the input they got from the nominee. At one time on this council, I thought having criminal experience was the end all and be all, and I couldn't vote for anybody that didn't have it. Well, a very wise man who used to be a counselor and executive director of this body for many years enlightened my thinking on that over the years. Matter of fact, last week, I think we all voted for a nominee that had no criminal experience, never had any 209A experience. So I like people with criminal experience, but it's not the only thing I look for. I look for somebody that is compassionate, has common sense, and that will be kind and compassionate to the citizens of this Commonwealth. I put that above anything else in a judge, especially in the district court. In addition to that, he had one unusual quality that I thought about over the weekend. I asked him about it last week. Judges, district attorneys, probation officers, and lawyers that work in these buildings, I believe they're going to ask for jail time. They should at least know what it's like to send a citizen of this Commonwealth into those cages. He definitely has that experience for a long time. I spoke to people over the weekend in Worcester, lawyers that I've known and respect, who all said the same thing about him. He couldn't do more for inmates as the lawyer. Hello? Yeah. So that kind of compassion for an inmate strikes me as a wonderful quality for a judge. And when I vote, and when every counselor votes for a nominee in this body, they too have an obligation to vote their hearts and their minds. They do it because they think it's the right vote for them. Sometimes it's a different vote than I do, but I don't criticize my counselors because they all have to come to the conclusion to vote yes or no in their own minds. So this candidate has a good sense of civil law. I spoke to the administration of the court system. They said Worcester not only has a lot of criminal, it has the most civil business in the Commonwealth. And that this individual, if he gets confirmed, would be in the civil side of the court in Worcester, probably for some time. And they indicated to me that usually there's a 4-week break-in period. He may need 5, he may need 8 weeks, but he will not do criminal stuff until he is ready. The other big factor and my decision was Judge Hillman, who I think is one of the best judges that has ever sat in the Commonwealth and one of the best federal judges on the bench. And he really went on and on about him, and I spoke to him in private about him. And he did say, when I asked him the question, that if this individual gets nominated and we start hearing the stories, we're going to go talk to him in his lobby. And he said to me, Bob, I'd be glad to have you go with me and talk to him in his lobby, but I'll be in his lobby before you even know about it. And I respect Judge Hillman immensely. So for all those reasons, I am going to be giving my advice and consent for this nominee. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank
Your
you,
Honor?
Counselor Jubinville.
Your Honor?
Counselor Ferrera.
Thank you. I just want to add to what Councilor Jubenville just spoke about. I too did extensive due diligence. I spoke with the sheriff in Worcester County, who has been his employer for many years, I think almost a decade, and he has nothing but rave reviews to say about him. The way he's handled the correction cases in the federal court and the superior court, have unbelievable transitional skill sets that he'll bring over to the district court. I also spoke to Brian DeAndre, the clerk in Worcester District Court that we put on, who's doing a great job. And Brian explained to me that a lot of the newer judges especially kind of shirk the civil session because they don't have experience there. Most of the people we put on do have an incredible amount of criminal experience. And I think sometimes the district court is lacking people with civil litigation experience, and clearly the nominee has a lot of that. Also, I echo the sentiments of Councilor Jubenville. When a federal district court judge comes into our session and tells us that he's known this man for 20, 30 years, he's going to be a wonderful judge. You have to put a lot of credence in that as well. So for those reasons and many more good things that I've heard about the nominee, I'll be voting yes today as well.
Thank you, Counselor Ferrera. A motion and a second. We may begin the roll call.
Council Pereira,
Yes.
Council Jubaville,
Yes.
Council Devaney. No. Council Ianella,
Yes.
Council Duff,
Yes.
Council Kennedy,
Yes.
Council DePaulo,
Yes. Yes.
Council Hurley.
No.
Governor.
Thank you.
Lieutenant Governor, I neglected to say that last week that I did get a call from Clerk Magistrate Brian DeAndrea, who is a close neighbor and friend of this nominee. And I wanted to put that in the record that I did get that call. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Devaney. Thank you, members of the council.
I have a question before we adjourn. I received 2 letters, Lieutenant Governor. One of them I had requested in July of last year. And I was very upset and very concerned about the deaths of coronavirus. Of the 77 or more heroes, veterans that we should be caring for who died. And my sister who died, and my other sister who was dying. So I had very strong concerns. Are we taking care of our elderly? My sister got sick. She had a mobility problem, and she was in a small nursing home in Newton, and 21 others got the coronavirus. My sister got sick, quarantined. We could never visit her. She died alone. No one should die alone. I'm a Catholic. We had no wake. We had no funeral mass. We had nothing. At the same time, it was like a nightmare. My sister Alice was in assisted living, and we got word she was dying. Thank God Alice is coming back. We lost Grace. And we lost 77 good people, elderly people who should we be caring for. And I got that response from July now to May. It's mute. It's mute. And I just want to say publicly that I support the wonderful Massachusetts Veterans Service agent that we had in the State House. And I'm saddened that he was the scapegoat for all of that in that home. He's a good man. He's a good person. He served us well. He served the country well. My other question, and I've asked you again and again for a year, and I'm going to keep asking 2 questions. We had the most qualified person, 14 years working in the Air District Court. She worked 14 years in the clerk magistrate's office. She was an assistant. She was an associate for 14 years. And when she applied, when the clerk magistrate retired, I got calls. They were in shock. She got a letter saying, "You're not getting an interview." I'm not going away, Lieutenant Governor. If I can't stand for these people, who can? And you are the one that can answer. Who made the decision that she shouldn't get an interview? It had to come from someplace. And who made the decision to send that letter, and who sent it? So that's it. But let me just say, I'm going to still wait for that. But I do want to say thank you for your sentiments of condolences when my sister Grace died. I want people to know that. You know I thanked you before, but I want to thank you publicly. But I would like to know those answers. And you know what? The people deserve to know who is being appointed. The interesting thing about this appointment, there were 3 people that applied for it. And we've got someone that was still on the payroll of the Governor's Council. There's something wrong here. And I came in with Governor Salucci. I loved him, most honest person you could ever know. He had a policy. If you worked here in the state, you could not apply for a judiciary appointment for 6 months and 1 day after you left. Isn't that a wonderful policy that we don't follow? So I'm going to leave with that. And one more thing. Can we have a moment and let's all say a prayer silently to ourselves for all of those who gave their lives that we will remember Memorial Day.
Thank you, Councilor Devaney, for recognizing Memorial Day, a day of remembrance for our lost heroes and their families, and our prayers for the men and women who serve our country. Thank you for honoring them with your words today. Relative to your requests, letters have been presented to you. I believe copies are available to you again today. And Chief Legal Counsel Bob Ross has offered to sit down with you and talk with you in further detail about your concerns. And I suggest that you do that.
Lieutenant Governor, I received a letter and it does not answer, and I keep getting the same contradictory answers. When I asked a year ago, Mr. Dacier was the only one that replied, none of you did, and he was sarcastic and said, you have to see the governor's lawyer. Now I get a letter from the lawyer saying it's Dacier that has the authority. So, all I want is respect. That's all I deserve is respect. So I'll leave you with that, and let's all remember on Memorial Day that we have our freedom because of all those people who gave their lives.
Thank you. We have a new nomination today. Sergio Carvajal has been nominated to the position of Associate Justice of the Housing Court. Councilor Devaney, this falls within your district. Do you have a date and time for the hearing?
I'm going to set that for June 9th at 1 o'clock.
Okay. Attorney Carvajal, June 9th p.m. That concludes our business today. I thank you all. Be safe and be healthy. Thank you.